Okay, welcome back friends. Now let us study the female reproductive system. The female reproductive system is more complex than the male reproductive system because it is framed to perform different functions, like it will create the egg cells, means the egg ovum. It will create the ovum. It will transport the egg to the fallopian tube for the purpose of fertilization. It will help in implantation of the zygote in the uterus and the resultant pregnancy. You may think, what is zygote? I think so we talked of this word in a previous video, but still we'll see it, right? Uterus is a new term for you. We'll definitely see what that means. Fallopian tube is definitely a new word for you. And pregnancy, I'm sure you all know about that meaning, right? So, and implantation, yeah, definitely, that's also a new word. So, implantation means fixing of the zygote in the uterus, and that would result in pregnancy, and the child would grow in the mother's uterus, or we can say womb. Okay, so the female reproductive system is responsible for that also. It is also responsible to produce female sex hormones. There are two female sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone. Some people write it as OES also, right? Estrogen, right? Estrogen and progesterone. So they are female sex hormones. So you see, all these functions, different functions, are done by this system. In males, it's very simple: to make sperm and to deliver sperm. That's it. Those two functions appear. The egg is formed. The egg is transported to the place of fertilization. After fertilization, the zygote forms, that, and it turns into an embryo. It is implanted in the uterus, and then pregnancy will also result. The baby develops, and the baby is delivery occurs. Baby is born. So baby lives for 9 months in the mother's womb. So the main reproductive organ of the female is a pair of ovaries. Right? So pair of ovaries are the main reproductive organ. And these ovaries produce the female sex cells called eggs, also called ova or ovum. And they also produce the sex hormones, the female sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone. So these are the main organs, right? The main organs. The accessory reproductive organ or organs in the female are the uterus and vagina. Right? You can pronounce it as vagina. Also, it is pronounced as vagina. Right? The real pronunciation is vagina. So, uterus and vagina are the accessory reproductive organs in human females. Accessory means which help. Okay. Uterus is the site of the fetal development. Fetal development means baby's development, right? The baby, right? Or we can say the unborn baby will develop in the uterus, and the vagina is the site which receives the sperms from the male. So male, I told you, has only two parts: the reproductive organ, the organ which makes the sperm, the testis, and all the other organs, including the glands and the penis, which delivers the sperm outside the male body. While in female, the vagina receives the sperm. Okay, let's go further. So, this is the structure or the diagram of the female reproductive system. You see, the main reproductive organ is the ovary, there are a pair of ovaries. Why a pair of ovaries? Because there are two ovaries. Now you see, this is also an ovary. So we have 1 and 2. the ovary is joined. See, they're not joined. There's a gap, right, by a fallopian tube. Fallopian tube ends in the uterus. This is the uterus, you see, right? The end of the uterus is the cervix. It's a small narrow opening, and this is the vagina. So the vagina receives the sperm, right? Sperm will enter from the vagina. Sperm swims all the way through the cervix, through the uterus, into the fallopian tube, right? Into the fallopian tube, and the egg, which is released by the ovary, right, will travel up into the fallopian tube. And if the egg and the sperm unite, this egg and the sperm, if they unite, if they fuse, then we can say a zygote is formed, and this zygote further moves up and it gets implanted in the uterus. Implanted means fixed in the uterus. This is implantation, and this zygote now is called embryo, and this embryo will further become a child. We'll see all of that in the subsequent part of this chapter. So let's again revise the names of the organs of the female reproductive system. We have the vagina, the small opening called cervix, the uterus, the fallopian tubes is like a hand, you see, it looks like a hand with small fimbriae up here, and you have the pair of ovaries. So first let's talk of ovaries. Ovaries act as the main female sex organ that produce the female gamete. Female gamete is nothing but the egg, right? The egg, and various hormones also. Progesterone and estrogen are the main hormones. These organs, means the ovaries, are situated one on both the sides of the lower abdomen. See, right? They are in the lower abdomen. Very small structure, ovary. They are as small like your thumb, maybe, right? The upper part of your thumb, maybe ovary are as big as that. Each ovary measures 2 to 4 cm in length. So you see, the upper part of your thumb would be that length. So 2 to 4 centimeter in length. It is connected to the uterus and the pelvic wall through ligaments. You see, this is the ligament. This is the ligament. So it is connected to the pelvic wall and the uterus by ligaments. The ovary is surrounded by a thin covering of epithelial. So ovary has a covering. This covering of ovary is called epithelial. It's a very thin covering. Epithelial are the tissues. And ovary is divided into two zones. The outer part is called cortex and the inner part is called medulla. Cortex and medulla is the same biological term for structure of most things. Like if you see the structure of kidney, we'll have cortex and medulla. And most organs, if we divide, the outer part will be the covering, the cortex, and the inner part is the middle part, the medulla. The cortex, see this part, the outer part, consists of various ovarian follicles which are in different stages of development. See, one very interesting thing you should understand is male sperm, right? Male sex, main thing is the sperm, right? Say male sex organ is not organ, but the material is the sperm. Sperm is made in testis. See, it is made in testis. Every single day, crores and crores of sperm cells are made, right? They are not permanent, and they die in 1 or 2 days. The eggs, actually, in female, the eggs, right, actually rupture from ovarian follicles. So in a female, the ovary has hundreds, or maybe not even hundreds. Let's increase that amount. Let's add one more zero to it. Thousands of ovarian follicles. Thousands. And what will happen? Every month after puberty starts, every month one follicle ruptures. Ruptures means fertile, and it will release one egg. Right? One follicle will only release one egg. So you can see in this stage, various stages of development. These are primordial follicle, which is in the basic form. Then the primary follicle, it is becoming bigger. The secondary follicle now is growing bigger. Then we have a Graafian follicle, the follicle which is about to now rupture. And then you will see, when the follicle ruptures, the egg is released. See, the egg is released by rupturing of the follicle. Right? And then this is lost. When the egg is released, whatever remains is called the corpus luteum. Right? This is the corpus luteum. It develops. The corpus luteum develops. Right? So now see, the egg is out. The follicle which remains, the covering which remains, is called a corpus luteum. And this now develops. And when this alone, that releases hormones. So female sex hormones are released by the corpus luteum. Progesterone and estrogen are released by the corpus luteum, means after the egg has been released. Okay, so this release of egg is called ovulation. Right? The release of egg is called ovulation, and every month only one egg is released, and that also by only one ovary. Right? So alternate. So left ovary will release in January, so right ovary will release in February. Every month only one egg is released. Only ovulation will occur, only one. Yeah, sometimes there may be more than one egg which is released. That is why twins come, right? Even triplets, even quadruplets, right? And dogs and cats, it is 8, 9 at a time, right? 7, 8 at a 9 at a time. So many ovaries, many follicles rupture. Then the next part is the oviduct. It is called the fallopian tube. Right? The oviduct, duct means tube, or also called the fallopian tube. Now this is the oviduct. You see, from here till here we have the oviduct. This is the ovary, right? This is the ovary. This is the fallopian tube. This part is the uterus, right, inside. So fallopian tubes are a pair of muscular tubes. See, they are a tube-like structure, and they have a funnel-shaped structure. You see at the end, this is a funnel-shaped structure. Right? They extend from the right and left of the superior corners of the uterus. Superior corner means the upper corners of uterus. The uterus, you see, is a V-shaped organ. Na? Uterus is something like this, right? It's like a funnel, and so from the upper parts, the superior parts of the uterus, the fallopian tube will extend, and it extends to the edges of the uterus, or to the ovary. See, from here they'll come to the edge of the ovary, but they don't touch the ovary. Now the fallopian tube can be divided into three parts. Right? Three regions. One is ampulla. Right? The ampulla, see, this part is the ampulla, the big part. The isthmus is the part which touches the uterus. Isthmus. Right? It's called isthmus. Ampulla. And we have the infundibulum. The last part of the fallopian tube. And at the end of the infundibulum, we have small projections. See, the red lines I'm making, like claws, right? They are called fimbriae. And they are responsible for collecting the egg which is released during ovulation. Okay? So, these tubes are enclosed in small projections called fimbriae that swipe over the ovaries to pick up the released ova and deliver them to the infundibulum for supplying to the uterus. Right? You see, the ephemeræ will collect the released egg, and this released egg is passing from the infundibulum into the ampulla, and from ampulla it passes and moves into the uterus. But by the time it reaches uterus, it may take 3 to 4 days, and it dies. But if in the fallopian tube, somewhere here in the fallopian tube, even here, it meets an egg. Egg meets sperm cell, then fertilization will occur. Right? We'll see about that a little later. Now see, each fallopian tube is covered by cilia. Cilia are the small hair-like structures. Right? They are small hair-like structures. See, these are groups of cilia. Lots and lots of cilia inside the wall of the fallopian tube. Right? Inside the wall of fallopian tube, and these cilia move about. They move. They swim. Right? They move, and their movement pushes the egg. This is the egg cell. It pushes the egg cell forward from the fallopian tube towards the uterus. Okay? So they function by carrying the ovum to the uterus. Then the uterus so uterus is also called the womb, right, where the baby develops. This part, you see this inverted structure you can see up here is the uterus. Okay, it's a muscular inverted pear-shaped organ of the female reproductive system. The walls of the uterus consist of 3 layers. The inner is called the glandular layer, the middle is a thick layer, and the outer thin layer. Right? The 3 layers of the uterus. These layers are maintained by ligaments which are attached to the pelvic wall, which then opens into the vagina from a narrow cervix. So the cervix is the passage. You can see this is the cervix. Right? This part is the cervix. It's a narrow passage. The cervical canal along with the vagina creates the birth canal, meaning the baby develops here. Yeah, the baby will develop in the uterus, in the mother's womb, and when the baby is ready to come out, the cervical canal, the muscles in the cervical canal will relax, and the baby is pushed out from the uterus into the vagina and outside the body. So vagina, when talk, the vagina is the last part, the part which opens to the outside of the female body. The vagina again is a muscular and elastic tube. Imagine the entire baby can come out from this, right? That connects the cervix to the external body. See, cervix and external body. Vagina is a tube. It's a cylindrical tube. It functions as a receptacle for the penis. Right? The penis will enter the vagina during sexual intercourse, and it delivers sperm to the fallopian tube and the uterus. So the penis, during sexual intercourse, the penis enters the vagina, and in the excited stage the penis releases sperm, and this sperm will now travel through the cervix into the uterus, and from the uterus into the fallopian tube, and it may fertilize the egg. The vagina also acts as the birth canal by expanding to allow the delivery of the fetus during childbirth. Okay, we end up here. Fertilization, pregnancy and menstruation, that's the reproductive cycle we'll talk of in the next video. Meet you then. Bye.